My name is Glenn Blinkman. I am another one of the customer success managers, and I am in charge of Teams as a platform. So all the applications that you can run within Teams. All right, so unleashing the power of the platform. So Teams apps, we've got a whole bunch of different applications that we can add to Teams. So why would we do that? There's a whole bunch of stuff in the base product, but that's not necessarily everything that you're ever going to want to do. Like Nash was saying, the polls and the approvals that are coming out, those are different applications that are going to get folded into Teams. But there are a whole ton of other things that you can do with Teams that work with your line of business, things that you can do to customize it to make Teams yours. Remember, Teams is more than just a product. It's really a place that you go to do your work every day. And everybody's job is a little bit different. So having the right tools for the job means we can bring the tools into Teams as opposed to Teams just being a tool that you happen to use during the day. So Teams apps can be third-party apps. Esri is one of my customers, and Esri Apps is one of the products that they make that's now available in the Teams App Store. ServiceNow is really popular in the government for doing ITSM requests. They have a nice bot, the Now bot, for Teams, and the other possibility is having custom apps that you can build yourself, and that's a lot of what I'm going to go through today. So they really allow you to extend the capabilities of Teams, adding what you need to do your work. Okay, so I'm going to go through two custom app examples today. One is the adoption app. It's an app that you can make yourself. We've got a guide here, and if somebody would like to copy and paste those two URLs and put those in, I know that they're not clickable this way. Like Stacy, if you could copy and paste those two URLs as announcements.
Yep.
Thank you very much. The adoption app is a great first app to use. This is a very simple app. You can put it together in under an hour. It's really something to show what you can use with what you have existing in your tenant, or that you happen to use already, so you can make better use of it. And you'll see what I mean when I go through this. It can also be whatever you want it to be. So as I'll show building the app, it doesn't have to look exactly like the sample that I built. You can make it look like whatever you'd like. Company Communicator is one of the many app templates that we have for Teams. We have a whole laundry list of different apps that Microsoft has put together and is published on GitHub that you can add into Teams that use sometimes Power Platform, sometimes they use Azure, and I will be highlighting Company Communicator. It's just a communications platform allowing you to get chat messages out to everybody in the agency or everybody in a whole tenant very quickly. I promise this isn't mostly slides. Whoops. Okay, so the adoption app, great first app. I'm putting this together with mostly SharePoint pages and other pages that you get from them. Common uses for the adoption app: training sites, human resources sites, or intranet portals, or a combination thereof. When I put together these samples, I used all Microsoft resources just because we're Microsoft, but it doesn't have to be. It can be whatever you want them to be, with some caveats, and I'll go through that. So now I'm going to switch into a walkthrough, and I will stop sharing that. and start sharing different page. All right, there we go. Now we've got the adoption app on here. So this is the adoption app. We've gone through a number of different Teams apps, just the calendar app and the meeting and doing meetings in Teams. But this app here is one that is a custom built app. And this is simulating what it might look like if you made, let's say, your intranet site here as one tab. And I'm just doing basic tabs here. So this is a SharePoint site. I have instructor-led training, and this is a SharePoint list coming from another site. Learning Pathways is another site that we have in the system. Learning Pathways is a training site that you can import into SharePoint in your systems and have all different types of training and training videos imported into your system. It's, again, one that we don't charge for. So if you have Teams and you have SharePoint, Microsoft 365, you can go to lookbook.microsoft.com and you can look up the Learning Pathways site and build that into your system. That link that I have for the adoption app goes through step-by-step how to do all that. And then I pulled another page in from just a training page that we have on Microsoft.com, just to show how we can pull in a page from the internet that's outside, that's not in our own SharePoint site, if we need that. And these are just the regular training videos that you have under help. Most people don't even know that they're there. I created a simple feedback form for the app. So this one is training focused, this app. And it just comes up with a simple form. So what products would you like training on? Now, the icon here is changeable. The name of the app is changeable. Any of this stuff is all customizable. But it just gives you a place to start with making a custom app to get you past, oh, I'm looking at a blank sheet of paper. Where do I possibly begin with this? So I'm going to go through how this is built. There's another app. So in the apps catalog, if you look for App Studio, you'll find that it's there. Or if you don't see it there, it's because you have the permission set in the tenant to not allow it. In the government community cloud tenants, that is off by default, and we can work with you to help you enable it if you'd like to enable it. So I'm going to open that right now. And this gives me something called the manifest editor. So I can take, and instead of having to write all this in Notepad or Visual Studio, this is just giving me a simple way to make an app manifest that's used for Teams. All Teams apps, including this App Studio, include some basic things. A bunch of tabs at the top and an About page. If I look at the About page, it tells me what capabilities the app has. This has tabs as well as a bot that's associated with it. They always list the website, the privacy policy, and the terms of use. Those are just 3 different URLs for you to go to. So this page here is common for every app. Who's publishing it, the version number, and the description. And you'll see why I'm highlighting that. If you look at any of the other apps, they'll show the same thing. So let me open the adoption app. And building the adoption app, this is where we're giving it a name, both the short name and the long name, the full name. The full name is what you're seeing up here at the top. The short name is what you see over on the left rail. Even you can see adoption app is a little bit long for the app name. I usually recommend that people keep the app name to one word. Or if it's going to be more words than that, very, very short. Something like App Studio is good. Just because you don't want that scrolling off the right side of the rail. It just looks better. That's aesthetics. So the identification, this is a GUID that gets created. Really hitting the generate button is all that needs to happen here. We're going to give the application a name and a version number. I've started out at 1.00, and then you can see I've updated it 7 times. And as part of the adoption app system, this is all getting filled out for you, and you can feel free to update that and give a description for what your app does. If you were starting from scratch, this would all be blank. For the developer information, I had, of course, Contoso doing this, and you would list your external website and your agency or the name of your organization. Remember, I was talking about the app URLs. This is where the privacy and the terms of use come in. Those are where the 2 URLs come from. You do need to have something here in order for it to be a valid app manifest. If you need to phony them up because you don't happen to have a privacy page or a terms of use page, then you do what you have to do. My suggestion is if you do have to do that, get somebody working on maybe making a privacy policy that you can put on your website and a terms of use page. Both those URLs would be something that you would put externally so that you can reference them. The branding, you feel free to make icons. I am terrible at making icons, so I go with the defaults. And then we're going to go to the capabilities of this. In this case, this is just a bunch of tabs. That is all we have here. So I'm not going to go through every tab, but let me go through the home. And we give it a tab name and an entity ID, which is usually the same as a tab name. It doesn't have to be, though. And we go through the URL for what website that is. And this is just our SharePoint homepage. And I put in a content URL. The reason why this is important, the content URL, this is the URL that you actually wind up seeing. We have some guidance on how to do this, but this is a trick for how to make SharePoint display in an iframe. You have to do 2 things in order to have the tabs work in a Teams app. You have to display this in an iframe, and it has to authenticate against Azure Active Directory. If it does those 2 things, you should be good. So this is how to make this work in an iframe, and of course, being SharePoint, it's going to work through Azure Active Directory. And then you make however many tabs you need. You try to keep the name short so that they show up here and don't get too long. For domains and permissions, we gave it an app ID that was part of the adoption app. This comes through registering this with Azure Active Directory. It will automatically figure out the valid domains. You can add others if you want, but it went through all the different tabs and found what domains should be valid for this. Easily enough. And single sign-on, we said, okay, go to SharePoint and make sure that we're going to sign on for that. That is it. What the app manifest looks like is in here. And I know this looks like gibberish to a lot of people, but it's just a JSON file, very simple to look through if somebody is familiar with with doing any type of programming or scripting. There's not much to it. That's all that this application does, is it allows you to create this form. Oh, I don't want to delete that. And from here, you can just say install to test it out if you want. And that allows you to test it for yourself. You can hit download to download the file if you want to save a copy. Always handy in case something goes wrong later. And hitting publish will put this in the Manage Apps area within the administrator program in order for an administrator to be able to approve it. The person developing this app and the admin do not have to be the same people. And this is how the handoff is done between them. So fairly easy to do. Okay, so adoption app, you can make your own app in a few minutes. Pretty easy to do. Contact your CSM and they can help you get started. And if they need help, they reach out to me. Company Communicator. So this is another app template that we have. It's a little bit more complicated than what I just showed. And it is for doing broadcast communications. Why don't we just send broadcast emails? That's the way we've always done it since the 1990s. Ernst & Young installed this. They've got a tenant with like 320,000 people in it, and they were finding their read rates for their broadcast emails were down between 4 and 6%. So that's a really, really low read rate. They were looking for a way to get the read rates up, and they're getting read rates from this system in the 80-something%. We have a whole program that we're doing with people called the Broadcast Hub in order to get people installing this and teaching them how to send out messages to everybody using this effectively. So how do you get your read rates up, and how do you get the messages out in a way that people are going to get the message, consume it, and act on them. So with Company Communicator, we limit who can send the messages, and we also eliminate the reply to all problem, because all the messages here are one way. That's one of the great pieces of Company Communicator. And I'm going to do a walkthrough. You get a little more of an idea of what we're doing for that. You should be good. And let me go into Company Communicator, and I will show you. In this case, we called it Contoso Communicator. You can name Company Communicator whatever you want, but since this is Contoso, it is Contoso Communicator. This is what's known as an adaptive card. So this is part of the extensibility of Teams. We're doing an app here, and the adaptive card shows the title here, shows a graphic, then it gives the text information about what you're trying to say, and then it's giving the who sent the message, which group sent the message, and then it gives an action button. It's very simple, but the reason why we get such high read rates on here is because of the way it works differently than email. Every time you're getting an email, it's a different format. You may not be able to read it on a cell phone. These are all fairly short messages, very capable of reading this on a mobile device, taking actions on a mobile device. So it works on web, it works on desktop, and it works with mobile. So the action button on here, in this case, is going to take me to a SharePoint page that has more information about what I was just reading. So that's the longer form document that you might send people to. I'm going to give you a taste of the authoring program. There are two pieces of this. There is the bot that sends the messages to the users, and you'll notice that that wound up in the chat window here. That's very important for making this, getting the message read, because people see the unread message in the chat and they will naturally go through and send the message. So I'm going to take and duplicate a message because I don't want to type this over again. And I'm going to edit. This is what the authoring area looks like. And this authoring area is only available to a small number of people. You can give people rights to review these without having the ability to send. But if you you would generally lock this down to only a few people being able to send to a whole tenant. And again, this is the title that you're going to send. It is the image URL. The image has to be something that is internet accessible. You can't use an internal page because people wouldn't be able to get to it maybe through mobile devices. And here's your summary text. Keep the summary text short because you want to keep that readable. If you want something longer for them to go through and read a page, let's say on SharePoint, then you point the button to the page. The button gets a title, and the author of the message gets shows here. And on the right side, you can view what the message is going to look like. So it gives you a nice editor, make sure everything's there. Once you hit next, you say, who am I going to send this to? I'm just going to send this to everyone. But you do have options of sending it to different security groups or distribution groups, or just members of a team, or just a general channel of a specific team if you want. I'm going to send it to everyone. Just keep it simple. Now again, when I hit send, I have yet another time that I can review this and make sure this is being sent to all users, and it gives you the warning again. So again, it hasn't sent this until you finally hit send. And now, after just a couple of seconds, that should go to my Azure bot. And there I have Contoso Communicator showing the message again. Now, you'll notice that the message is now at the top of my list of unread messages. Not only that, but all the messages that were sent before are easily scrollable and you can look through them. That's not true of emails. The emails are around all over the place in your mailbox. So this is something that you may want to make sure that people go back and review something later. If you're sending this via email, it's just going to scroll off the page and they're not going to have it anymore. This makes it easy. All right, I'm going to stop presenting that and go back to the slides, and then we'll do a wrap up. All righty. So setting up Company Communicator, this takes setting this up with Azure, works fine in GCC tenants, takes an hour or two to set up, and but it will get messages to the people where they want to read them. Your read rates will go up quite dramatically. So instead of in the single digits, you'll get in the high double digits of messages And so my wrap up is go create your first app. And figuring out what you want it to be is usually the biggest challenge.